If you are thinking of relocating to Austin, Texas, naturally you are wanting to learn as much as you possibly can. And of course, by now, I'm assuming you've heard a lot of the same stuff, surely from our channel and a lot of other sources, talking about a lot of the same things. And so the point of this video is to really pick the brain of a local and see what kind of things can be talked about that aren't usually talked about, that a lot of people don't think to talk about. Some good, some not so good, and hopefully by the end of this video, help you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not Austin, Texas is right for you. Stay tuned. Hey again everybody, this is Frank with the Living in Austin group now at eXp Realty. Every week we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. So consider subscribing if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified whenever we put out a new video. We also love the reach outs we get now all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to Austin, Texas. So keep them coming, don't hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. So yes, in this video, we are going to be talking about 5 things that people just don't talk about regarding Austin, Texas, or at least they don't talk about it very often. And so for starters, I wrote down bubble proof. And I guess that should really mean bubble pop proof. And what I mean by that is, look, we all know in the nation right now, it is a seller's market. And a lot of potential buyers are asking the question of, when is the bubble going to pop? And they want to find the right opportunity to come and buy. Well, the thing is with Austin, Texas, it's a bit unique in the sense of, at least in my opinion, even when that bubble does pop, or if it pops, who really knows for sure, but if or when the bubble does pop across the nation and it goes from being a seller's market to a buyer's market, Austin is not necessarily going to be super duper easy all of a sudden. It's not going to be super duper affordable all of a sudden. It's not really going to change at least as dramatically as a lot of other cities or states in the country. And the reason why is the demand. Then that's the thing. You know, we have Facebook here, we have Tesla here, we have IBM here, we have Dell here, we have Apple here, we have all the tech companies are flocking here from the San Francisco Bay Area. And so that means that Austin, Texas already is in such high demand with this new $17 billion Samsung plant in Taylor, Texas, for example, or the Tesla plant 30 minutes roughly from Bastrop, Texas, for example. And so that's not really going to stop. I mean, recently Michael Dell at South by Southwest told the South by Southwest crowd that the whole tech scene and everything coming here is really just in its infancy. And so that means even if things do change in the market, Austin, Texas is still going to be at least a version of Los Angeles, San Francisco, Manhattan. Not to literally compare it to those things because those places are beasts and Austin will never be like that. However, those places are always going to be more expensive and they're always going to be more in demand regardless of what the market looks like. So that's something just to keep in mind with Austin, Texas, and how things might change in the market. It's not necessarily good news, and on this channel we keep it pretty blunt and pretty brutally honest. Yes, things might change for the better, especially if you are a buyer. However, don't expect Austin to necessarily flip given the demand and given the popularity and the fact that it's consistently a hotspot for relocation in the entire country. All right, up next, I wrote down outskirts. And what I mean by that is some of the comments we get or some of the questions we often get from people are, well, Frank, what about the tents downtown? What about the prices downtown? What about the crime downtown? What about the extreme politics downtown? There's always issues with downtown Austin, which is why, by the way, it has dropped from being the number 5 place of best places to live in the country to number 13 from 2021 to 2022. So people ask, well, what about that? Well, I wrote down outskirts because the truth of the matter is, most people who move to Austin, Texas, at least in our experience, don't actually move to Austin, Texas. They don't actually move to the city limits. And so a majority of the reach outs we've gotten ever since we started this channel, which by the way, my team thanks you, I thank you, my family thanks you. 95% of those, most of the people we've helped close on homes since they reached out to us and have successfully relocated to the greater Austin area do not go to the city. That looks like, hey Frank, we're looking at Bastrop. Hey Frank, we're looking at Leander. We're looking at Round Rock. We're looking at Georgetown, Pflugerville, Hutto. So that's the thing about Austin, Texas. All of a sudden, once you leave the city limits, roughly 20 to 40 minutes away, things dramatically are different. You're going to see tents in some places, yes, I've talked about that, but the tents aren't as pressing or prevalent as they would be downtown, nor is the crime, and nor is the lack of affordability. I'm not going to say that it's all of a sudden dirt cheap once you leave the city, because no, Austin, Texas as a whole, as a greater Austin area, is going to be more expensive easily than the rest of Texas. But a lot of people look at the downtown median, for example, and they'll see it's right around $600,000, and they look at Dallas or San Antonio or Houston in the fours per se, wherever they are. And so the thing is, when you're looking at a place like Hutto or Leander, Texas, or Round Rock or Georgetown, a lot of these median home prices are going to be in the mid to high 300s, in the low 400s, the mid 4s, oftentimes around $500,000, which are significantly more affordable, at least relative to what you can expect within Austin, Texas. And so a lot of these people realize, well, I mean, I want to be close enough to the city so I can enjoy the fruits of the city and what Austin, Texas is all about, but I don't need to be there 24/7. I just need to be within 30 minutes for my commute or for the weekends or for a night out. So that's what a lot of people are doing. And what's really cool about these outskirts is that a lot of them have their own different personalities. For example, Georgetown is going to have a quaint small town feel with its own mini downtown full of boutique shops, and it's going to be a little bit on the conservative side. And so that's a certain flavor. And then you have, for example, Round Rock or Leander, Texas, which are the true definitions of suburbia. It's going to feel like big box stores and Applebee's and Bed Bath & Beyond and beautifully crafted master plan communities. And then you're going to have places per se like Pflugerville or maybe Bastrop or Dripping Springs, which are going to have just their own flavor as well, especially if you're a little bit closer to the city. So the Westlake Hills, Bee Cave, Dripping Springs as mentioned, are going to have rural mixed with urban. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Most of the time, your best option is not Austin, Texas, which is a bit ironic. The greater Austin area, most of the time, is going to be your best bet. At least that's what we've experienced with the reach outs we get. So that is something to keep in mind regarding Austin, Texas. It's easy to get scared away for good reason when you're looking at the city. But truth of the matter is there are other options out there, and some of them might be right for you. Okay, moving right along, I wrote down schools. And the reason I wrote down schools is because whether you're talking to someone you know who lives in Austin, you're watching a YouTuber like myself or someone else talk about Austin, you're going to hear about the tech, you're going to hear about the crime, you're going to hear about the prices, you're going to hear about what's perfect about Austin or why you shouldn't move to Austin, things that we talk about a lot on both sides to keep it pretty balanced. But rarely are you going to hear people say, man, you know, you should move to Austin. The schools are great. Nor are you going to hear, man, you really shouldn't move to Austin. The schools suck. Schools just don't really come up. It's one of those things that just, you don't think about it. But it is something regarding the greater Austin area. And to be quite honest, the state of Texas itself are these great public schools. And so another thing, with all the reach outs we've gotten, most of these people are relocating with their families. Most, not all, a lot of people come solo or just with their partner, but a lot of them do come with their families, and atop their priority lists, of course, understandably so, are good school districts for their kids, which is why Leander is so popular, which is why Round Rock is so popular, so on and so forth. And so that is something to keep in mind. You know, I was lucky to grow up in the public school district of the Leander Independent School District, and I thought that was normal for everybody, right? I thought my experience was what the rest of the country experienced, because you don't know what you don't know, and you grow up with only your perspective on things. But as you know, I grew up and matured and I traveled and met other people, I would hear their stories of what their public schools were like, and some of them are basically horror stories with and the budgets that these districts have and the resources they have and what the quality of schools were like, the teachers, the AC units, chalkboards, whatever it is that makes it kind of questionable. And the thing is about the Round Rock Independent School District, the Leander, the Eanes out by Westlake Hills, or even Lake Travis ISD out by Bee Cave, Lakeway, and of course Lake Travis itself, is that these places are not really going to feel like what a lot of the nation, I came to learn, thinks of public schools. A lot of them might as well be like private schools, just without the uniforms. And what I personally like about the Leander or the Round Rock Independent School Districts, and what a lot of other people like, is that those aren't necessarily rich areas, because of course you expect a district near the Westlake Hills to be top tiered because the median home price in that area is $2 million plus. So when you're looking at places like Round Rock or Leander, where you can still find homes for the high threes, the low fours, the $500,000 of the world, it still feels like a private school type of district. And that's the thing, I did not really grow up with much money whatsoever, but I was fortunate to be zoned where I lived for the district that has a lot of great resources. We had a football stadium, we had an auditorium for choir and theater and things like that. So that is something that Austin, or yes, Texas itself, but really the greater Austin area can really hang its hat on. Are all the districts going to be great? No, and I would encourage you to do your research and see which one vibes best with you, because there are, for every suburb, basically, there is its own district. But the cream of the crop ones are here in the greater Austin area, and that is what drives a lot of these families to these suburbs that have the best schools. So that is something that is really just not going to naturally come up in conversation that a lot of people might want to learn more about. And so there you have it. It's something to keep in mind. If you do have children, if you are coming with a family, rest assured we do have great schools. It just requires a little bit of further research to find out if it's exactly what you want. Moving right along, I wrote down the subject of lakes. And this one's interesting because, yes, if someone's telling you about Austin, Texas, then they'll talk about the avocado on toast, they'll talk about the crystal shops, they'll talk about the yoga, they'll talk about the hiking, the healthy lifestyle, the IPAs and the long beards and the arts and the culture here, and keep Austin weird, yes. And some of that will be, how you can paddleboard downtown, or you can take out a canoe downtown, or have a picnic by the water downtown, with obvious lakes such as Lake Austin or Lady Bird Lake, or even other water spots like Barton Springs and things like that. Well, what a lot of people don't realize, because they're looking at the city of Austin, is that there are other lakes throughout the greater Austin area. There is a Lake Pflugerville, there is a Lake Georgetown, and even in Lago Vista, or even near Leander, Texas, you have the north shore of Lake Travis. A lot of people think if they need or want to live by Lake Travis, they've got to live in Bee Cave, they've got to live in Lakeway, or that whole Lake Travis Independent School District area. Well, that's the south shore of Lake Travis. If you go to the north shore, all of a sudden you're near Jonestown, Lago Vista, and Leander, Texas. And so between that and Pflugerville and Georgetown, and of course what you have in the city limits, you have a surprising amount of bodies of water. So if you do want to live in suburbia, if you do want to live in Georgetown, if you want to live 45 minutes away from the city and keep it in your rearview mirror to visit when you want, you can visit the water, have picnics, take a boat out, and just enjoy that without having to go to the city. That is something that really just doesn't get, at least in my opinion, enough attention when regarding talking about the greater Austin area. And so that is something that could be quite valuable, because a lot of the people who are relocating to Austin, let's be honest, are coming from the coasts, coming from Los Angeles, or coming from San Diego, San Francisco, Oregon, Washington State, even New York City or upstate New York, or places just close enough to the water, the Carolinas. And so that's what they're giving up. They're giving up proximity to the beach. And no, I'm not going to say Austin has a beach. And of course, the closest beach to Austin would be Galveston near Houston, which is a beach, but I wouldn't really recommend it either. You know what I mean? So the plus side, okay, yeah, you don't have a beach. That's definitely a negative. But if you come to Austin and you want to at least be near water, you have multiple places, not just downtown, but in the whole Austin area, that are close enough to respective bodies of water. So that, in my opinion, is a pretty sweet little fine print silver lining type of thing regarding the greater Austin area. And it's something to keep in mind if you are coming from the coast and you're going to miss your beach. It's not a substitute, but hey, it's something. Now, real quickly, before moving on, drop a comment down below for us to get involved in. If we've been providing any value for you, consider liking the video as well, as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. All right, if you've made it this far in the video, we are now going to talk about something that is potentially controversial, I suppose, because we do reach different generations, different age demographics. So hopefully not too controversial, but I do realize there will be differing opinions about the subject, and that subject is cannabis, also known as weed, also known as marijuana, also known as the devil's lettuce, also known as God's grass, also known as jazz cabbage, whatever you want to call it. and how it is relative regarding Austin, Texas, what it looks like in Austin, Texas, and what you can expect. So, spoiler alert, Austin, Texas is in the state of Texas, which is overall a sea of red. And what does that mean? Texas absolutely is going to be one of the last states in the entire country, bet your bottom dollar, that is going to legalize cannabis, at least full-blown cannabis, right? Because we do have different spots throughout Texas that are like CBD shops. And those places are pretty cool and they're very easily accessible. They have legal stuff. They isolate it. I'm not quite sure how the process works, but they'll say we sell Delta 8 and we sell Delta 10, but we can't sell Delta 9, wink, wink. So Delta 9 is like full-blown cannabis, right? And so we do have that much. But if you're someone who is used to using cannabis, because I'm not just talking to smokers here, I'm really not talking about getting high. Fact of the matter is cannabis helps a lot of different people. And I learned firsthand, my oldest brother, who's autistic and epileptic, would have horrible seizures. And because of that, he was taking years and years and years of this pharmaceutical medication, which was really thinning his bones, affecting his health. He was having horrible side effects from this pharmacy medication that did help the seizures, yes, but left him in a bad state. And so over time, we've transitioned him off of the medication from the pharmacy and onto THC and CBD and stuff like that to remedy his seizures. I also know people who struggle with opioid addiction and they're using cannabis to wean themselves off. I know people, one of my best friends is a personal trainer and a professional weightlifter, and he's always sore, so he'll use it for his muscle soreness. Or even my own mother, who oftentimes has a lot of trouble sleeping, will take some kind of form of droplets or tinctures to help her go to sleep. So it's not all about getting baked or getting stoned. It can be useful for a lot of people. And so what I'm getting at is, if you are someone who relies on it to function, if you rely on it for depression, if you use cannabis in a way that helps you live your day-to-day life and you're used to that, coming to Texas or coming to Austin, Texas is going to be a little bit different. I'm not saying there are no options, because as mentioned, you have your Delta 8, your Delta 10, you have gummies, you have things for your dogs, you have all kinds of tinctures and ways that you can use it, but it's not going to be Delta 9. It's not going to be the stuff that is legal in California, that is legal in Colorado, so on and so forth. And so that is something I just wanted to bring up that a lot of people are just not going to talk about because it can be considered taboo depending on who you talk to. I would hope that by now in 2022, most people have come around to at least the benefits of it. You don't even have to like it, but at least understand, what it can do now. But yeah, that's the thing. People just aren't going to talk about it. And if that is something that you don't want to broadcast or advertise or even, bring up to people because it's private, I'm telling you right now, it's not legal in the state of Texas, at least the Delta 9 stuff, cannabis, the true cannabis. So you might be able to find solace and help in the other stuff they're allowed to sell here, but I can't guarantee that because everyone's bodies are different. So just keep that in mind. If it is something you use all the time or rely upon, you have options, yes. Will they be the same options? No. For better or worse, you might like it, you might not. But that is the state of marijuana or cannabis regarding Austin, Texas and the state of Texas. So there you have it. Some great things, some not so great things regarding Austin, Texas. And hopefully we've done a good enough job of thinking outside of the box of the usual talking points that I'm guilty of, that I'm sure most people are guilty of, things that just don't naturally come up in conversation, whatever you want to call it. And hopefully have helped you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not living in Austin, Texas will be right for you. And if it is, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to Austin, Texas, making that move as smooth as possible and finding that perfect spot. But again, the only way we can do that is again by you reaching out to us. So don't hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. We've got your back. We're moving to Austin, Texas. And again, every week we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and the bad. So remember to subscribe if you haven't and ring that little bell to get notified whenever we put out a new video. Comment down below. Like this video if we've been providing any value for you. Share it with anybody you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.